Hello everyone, welcome to JCE Connect. This is subject application development using Python, and this is module 1, lecture number 6. So in previous lectures we discussed about the flow control of a program, what are the different flow control statements, the boolean operators, the comparison operators, alright, and we also had a few simple examples of how flow control can be changed. Now, talking about the elements of the future flow control, moving ahead with the flow control in a little advanced depth, in little more depth, the elements of the flow control, they, all the flow control statements, they all start with a condition, right? I hope you all agree to this. Like all the flow control statement, they often start with a condition. Take any example, and it is followed by a block code. Block code is nothing but the statements which are followed by that particular condition. Let's say, for example, let's say if we have a if condition, then that if condition will be followed by a block of code. Now that block of code can be a single line code or can be few set of uh, lines which can be called as a block. So they are called clauses. So every flow control statement they start with a condition and it is followed by a block of code called flaws. Right. So talking about different conditions here, as you all know, we have the condition can be either true or it can be false. Right. It will basically evaluate to single value, any single value that is true or false. Now what is this blocks of code? So these instructions or these expressions or these whatever the code that we write, these lines of code can be grouped together in a blocks. So to establish this block, there is a set of rules. There are three rules for the block. That is, the block begins with a indentation increases. Right, the block begins when the indentation increases. The block can contain other blocks also. Right, the blocks can contain other blocks. We'll have an example of this. And also the blocks end when the indentation decreases to zero. Right? The blocks end when the indentation decreases to zero or to a containing blocks indentation. That is, by this I mean that the block can either end when it has when its indentation has decreased to zero or when it is into a containing blocks indentation. It is here, right? So these are three basic rules for the blocks. Now we'll have an example of this, but before that, so here is a simple example of how a if else statement, if else condition can be executed, right? So here's a simple example that if name is let's say, the blocks, when we talk about the blocks, we have if statement here and the block of this particular if statement. We have another if statement with another block of code, which is actually a single line. In all three cases, we have single line of code, which is uh, a block, which is can be called as a block, which is actually a block. But this code can be multiple line of code also, which is basically called as a block. So and ultimately in the third point, the third instruction also you can see that else condition also having a single line of block. So all these three are an example of a single line block code. Right? So first is to print the hello name of the person, hello Mary. Second is to print access granted, or third is to print else print wrong password. Right? So if the user enters correct, it says hello Mary, access granted, else it prints wrong password. So simple example. Now let us understand using the simple hello world program that we have executed earlier, the simple hello world program that we have seen in our previous lectures, right? How this execution can happen for this particular program from at the top of the program going down, right? But like I discussed in the previous lecture, that the flow of the program, the flow control can be changed. The flow of the program need not be necessarily from top to bottom in a linear fashion. It can be in a non-linear fashion also, right? So basically, not all programs are executed by simply going straight down. That is, not all programs are executed in a linear fashion only. It can be other way around also. So there can be different flow depending on the different flow controls. So that comes up, that brings us to the flow control statements that we have. So simple flow control statements that you are already aware, that is the if statement, else statement, right? So if statement, which is it consists of these four parameters, four things, which are not parameters, that it should have a if, the keyword if, and the condition, that is an expression that evaluates to either true or false. It it ends with a colon. Please note here, it's not a semicolon, it's a colon, right? Which is which denotes the start of a block, you can say. And then it has a starting on the next line of that block, that indented block of the code, right? Which is called as a if clause. And similarly, for else, it will be an else clause. Let's take an example to understand this if statement. Let's say this is a simple example. If name is equal to double equal to alias, and print hi alias. Let us understand this with a flowchart. We have start. We have a decision to make, that is if name is equal to alias. We have a condition to be checked, which will be evaluated to either false or true. So when the name is exactly equal to the string alias, if it is equal to, then the boolean value, it evaluates to true, and it says print hi alias. If it is not, it goes false and it ends, right? So this is simple else, simple if statement, flow chart of a simple if statement, right? So similarly, when we talk about else statement, else also has this set of else also consists of these things, that it has to be in the keyword else has to be there, followed by a colon, the condition, and the starting of the next line, that is the indented block code, is called the else clause, as I discussed earlier. So here is an example, that is if name is equal to alias, and print hi alias. If this is the if statement. Now the second part, let's say it has an else part. Let's say it has an else statement, and else is, that is if it is not alias, then it prints hello stranger. So in order to understand from a flowchart point of view, let us understand like this, that right. So we have a start function, we have a condition to be checked whether name is equal to alias. If it is false, print say hello stranger. That is what is happening here is, if this is true, then print hi alias. Then else, if it is else statement, else print hello stranger. Earlier we were after else, I mean we didn't have any else statement, we were abruptly ending it. But now we have an else statement which prompts a message that hello stranger, and then it ends. So simple else statement. Now what is if else statement? As you know, it's a combination of if else conditions. It should have a elif keyword. Please note the keyword here is the elif. And elif is the keyword, which again a condition, that is the expression that evaluates to a single value, single boolean value, either true or false. It has a colon, and it's on the next line start with an indented block code, which can be called as a elif clause. Now here's an example of an elif program. That if name is alias, then print high alias. And instead of else, we are using elif, which is actually a combination of else if age is less than 12, then print you are not alias kiddo, right? So this is a simple example. Now let us understand this with an example of with a flowchart, right? So we start, we check the condition name is either the name is alias. If it is true, print high alias. If it is false, we check whether the age is less than 12. In fact, we are checking a if statement again. There's a second if. So when the name is not alias, when it is false, age, we check the age for it. Age is less than 12. If the age is less than 12, then we say print you are not an alias kiddo, right? And once it is false, it's end. So simple else elif is nothing but the else if conditions, right? So here are few examples which you can try it out. Simple examples, simple instructions, almost similar. All right. So here is an example of a multiple if else condition, multiple elif conditions you can say. So let's briefly have an overview of this also. Right? Okay, we have this example here. If name is alias, print high alias. Elif age is less than 12, we check for the age. If it's less than 12, check is when we know that he or she is a kid. Print you are not alias kiddo. Further, else if that is age is greater than 2000. Say this is very hypothetical situation, very hypothetical uh, conditional statement that we are asking. That is, if age is greater than 2000, print unlike you, Alice is not an undead or immortal viper. Just the author is trying to bring a humor here. Anyways, the main motive here is to form a loop of elif statements, and ultimately, again, we are checking the third elif, that is, age is greater than 12, then print you are not Alice granny. Okay, so let us understand now with the help of a flowchart. Right? So as you can see here, this remains same. If it is true, print high alias and then again go back to end. Right? If it is false, that is the name is not alias, it checks for the age. If the age is less than 12, which is true. If the age is less than 12, let's say any value below 12. If it is true, it says you are not alias kiddo. If even this else if statement, that is elif statement, is false, then it checks for the second elif statement, that is the age greater than 12, 2000. If it is true, it gives you this message that it is unlike you. Alice is not an undead immortal vampire, sorry, right? And further, if even if this elif statement is false, it checks for the third elif statement, that it checks the age whether it is greater than 100. If it is greater than 100, which is let's say true, then print you are not an alias granny. If it is false, anyhow it is getting to end. But as you can see here, after each elif, we are directly ending. Right? If we, after each elif statement gets true, we are ending. So this is a loop, you can see, or you know, nested, you can say, in broad terms. So having said that, this vampire program, we will understand this vampire program in more detail with taking few more examples of the different conditional statements that we have. So for today's lecture, uh, this is it. If you still have, if you have any simple, if you have any kind of query, any doubt, you are free to ask here, either here in the comment section or in a WhatsApp group or in a Google class, right? So it was very basic, I mean, introductory to the statements, the conditional statements. But still, if you have any doubt, let it be silly one. You are free to ask, and that query or that question will be answered. Right. So stay tuned for the further lectures, and please let me remind you. Please make a note of all the important things that you see here in the lecture. Right, and please maintain a separate group for it. So that's all for today's lecture.